Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth Show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth Show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Welcome to the Speaking of Wealth Show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, where we discuss profit strategies for speakers, publishers, authors, consultants, coaches, info marketers, and just go over a whole bunch of exciting things that you can use to increase your business, to make your business more successful and more passive and more automated and more scalable. So we will be back with a great interview. Be sure to visit us at speakingofwealth.com. You can take advantage of our blog, subscribe to the RSS feed, and many other resources for free at speakingofwealth.com. And we will be back with a great interview for you in less than 60 seconds. It's my pleasure to welcome Everte Farnell, and he is president of Farnell Publishing and a freelance copywriter and known as America's good news guy. And we're going to talk to him about copywriting, and we're going to talk especially with a little bit of a focus on the financial services industry and hedge funds and what their advertising does to people and some of their techniques. I think you'll find this interesting in multiple ways. Welcome. How are you? You're coming to us from Florida today, right?
I am. I'm doing wonderfully. I appreciate you asking. During the winter months, I get to tease everybody, because it's a frigid 70 degrees or something. But
now it's hot and humid, right?
I was going to say right now it's about 962 degrees outside, so everybody else gets to tease me now. So
yeah, exactly. Well, the problem with Florida is the darn humidity. It's not really the temperature that's even so bad. It just gets really humid there, right?
Well, tell my hands that when the skin peels off on my steering wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the heat is an issue too. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about your background. And you're a copywriter, but you're particularly versed in the financial side of copywriting, right?
I do. I do some work in the financial world, as it were. I also have. I also work with small and medium-sized, really entrepreneurial businesses all over the country, and help them generate more sales, get better returns with their marketing dollar. The financial world, the financial newsletter world that I do a lot of work in, is a lot of fun. But quite frankly, the entrepreneur, the regular just entrepreneurial business guy, really needs some help in the market today.
So what kind of help do they need? I mean, just getting their message out, obviously, but be specific about that if you would.
Okay. Well, really, when it comes to marketing, they need help with understanding the type of marketing that works very well with their size business. And when I say their size business, I mean, it's like, for example, I used to know a guy who had a local pool business. It's a very successful pool business, but he had inherited it from his parents, and it was successful based on the reputation it had in the area. But he was having an incredibly tough time with marketing because his wife had been the president of Philip Morris in Europe, the president of their marketing division in Europe. So she ran Philip Morris's marketing and across Europe. Well, her marketing budget was 10 times his gross revenue. You know what I mean? There's no way. So she was telling him how to market. He was trying to market that way, and it was a miserable failure because when you're doing, when you're an entrepreneurial business, these guys don't have $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, $50 million to devote to a marketing campaign to try and sway the thought processes of the entire, of large populations of people. They have to narrow in specifically who they're talking about, and they have to do something that will generate direct revenue. It's called direct response marketing, and you see it. The thing most people are familiar with is Billy Mays screaming at you about OxyClean. That's direct response. That's a direct response commercial. Pops up. Here's a response mechanism. Here's how much it costs. Call an order now. And that's what we try to help small businesses do, so that they know that when I mail this letter, when I run this ad, I spent this much on it. I got this much in revenue. I made this much in profit. Was it a profitable ad to run, or was it not a profitable ad to run? If it was profitable, great, keep it. If it wasn't profitable, scratch it and move on to the next media or the next ad, or et cetera, et cetera.
Well, tell us about the financial services industry, and are they deceiving people, in your opinion, with their advertising, and specifically hedge funds?
Well, hedge funds specifically are, of course, the advertising has just come online for them, and the rules about advertising have not changed. However, the rules about who they accept, the rules about advertising have changed, but the rules about who they can accept have not changed. So in general, big broad umbrella, does financial services do much of the financial services advertisements mislead people? Well, I will just say this: you don't see any of the big brokerages putting up track records on in their advertisements. They talk about how wonderful they are, how trustworthy they are, how this, how that. And in general, the truth is that the brokers are salespeople. Stockbrokers and financial planners are salespeople. Their job is to sell you on buying stocks and other investments through them, or in the alternative, sell you on hiring them to advise you if they're not taking a commission, if they're a fee only, if they're a fee only organization. As far specifically to hedge funds, now hedge funds are, that's not dissimilar. If you look at the industry, now I'm not talking about specific hedge funds, but if you look at the industry, their track record is pretty abysmal. But they do a wonderful job attracting gobs and gobs of money. So of course the question is, well, how do they do that? Well, they do that because they're brilliant when it comes to marketing. They're not doing the same kind of direct response marketing that many of the newsletter business and the financial publishing business is doing. They're also not doing much of the direct response marketing that I teach with local businesses. But when you're George Soros, the rules change. You have more money, you have more influence, you have the ability to do things that smaller players can't do. So a lot of these places are attracting huge sums of money because people in general are looking for a wizard. They're the old joke in the direct marketing business, and I'm probably letting the cat out of the bag here, which I shouldn't be doing, but the old joke is that people are walking around umbilical cord in hand looking for a new place to plug it in. And when they find a wizard like a Soros or some other fund manager with whom they have something in common, it doesn't even have to be that the fund manager is that great, but they have some kind of link in common, then they'll often put their money in, even if it's a losing proposition. Case in point, while it's a very, 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 these sorts of things happen very rarely, but case in point would be Madoff. Bernie Madoff, the Bernie Madoff scandal. He had all the credentials. People had he made a ton of his money off the wealthy Jewish community around the United States.
Yeah, but Madoff didn't advertise. I mean, he was just a networker, right?
Right. Well, and that's what these organizations have done in the past. But see, there's advertising and marketing are two different things. So you're right. He didn't buy an ad in a magazine, and for the most part, the average person is not going to see a lot of hedge funds advertising in a magazine because you still have to be a certified investor, which means that you have to have $1 million net worth between you and your spouse, not including your primary home.
Accredited investor.
Right.
Yeah, or $200,000 a year in income, right?
Right, or 200 for the last 2 years with a reasonable expectation of that continuing, or $300,000 in marital income. So it's 200 personal, 300 marital. And yes, you're right. I use certified instead of accredited. My apologies.
Right. Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, so you have. They're not going to be running ads in time, most likely. A lot of people are not going to see advertisements from them. But what they will do is they will see marketing take place in. They will see marketing take place in positioning where these guys, meaning the people who are out in front of the crowd, will present themselves as brilliant as brilliant investors, and some of them are brilliant and some of them not so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I just think it's amazing how much money Wall Street has to advertise. I mean, and all of their commercials, they hide behind the SEC. So I'll just mention that in a couple ways. Number one, their commercials that you see on TV are so generic. They're just absurdly generic. They're like, well, if you want to have a better future, and it's kind of like these drug company commercials as they're listing all the terrible side effects of these drugs. You might die, you might get diarrhea, all these things are going to happen to you, splitting headaches, whatever. And they're showing people enjoying life and living the good life. It's like unbelievable how contradictory it is. But these commercials on television for these investment houses are so esoteric. I mean, they're just meaningless. When I see those, I say, where's the beef? Show me your rate of return. And then they're going to say, when you even ask them that, they say, well, I can't mention that because it's SEC regulation and all this stuff. I call the SEC, I heard this name from somebody else, I can't remember who, the Scoundrels and Encouragement Commission. That's what the SEC stands for. Because what these advisors do is they love being regulated secretly. They'll never say that. They'll always act like it's a big burden and a big onerous pain in the rear end. But in reality, they love it because it makes their job easier, and it allows them to promulgate all sorts of BS onto the public. Whenever you ask them, well, show me your performance, your track record. Oh, well, I can't send that over email because it's an SEC regulation. They'll always say, what a bunch of crap. I don't believe that it is, but they all, maybe it is, who knows. But, it's like you can't evaluate these people. They're so squirrely, they never give you anything that you can actually sink your teeth into in terms of numbers or return on investment or anything,
Well, and that's why they, I mean, if you look at the ads, who was it who had Sam Waterston on, and of course, Law and Order fame. He was, he came on.
Yeah, I remember. That was Ameritrade, I think, possibly.
Was it Ameritrade?
Maybe. I could be wrong.
He didn't even say he invested with them.
Right.
He
no,
just
they never
said,
do, yeah.
This is one,
Well, and even if he said he did, what's he going to do? Invest $1,000 with them? Okay, I'm an investor. Right. I'm a client. Whoop-de-doo. $1,000 versus my couple, 3, 4, 5 million a year that I earn, or maybe a lot more than that if it was on Law and Order. So what?
So, and that's what I mean when I say that what these guys do is they work with, and I use Madoff because he's a high-profile example, not because he's the norm. I don't mean to suggest that these guys are involved in illegal activity, but what does happen is you take guys. I mean, the perfect example is Buffett. Now he is undoubtedly very successful, but there's the Buffett premium. So now he doesn't actually run a hedge fund, obviously, or even a mutual fund or any kind of, but there's the Buffett premium. So companies that Berkshire own trade at a higher premium than their peers, because Buffett owns them. Well, why is that? Well, the only reason is because Buffett's gotten on TV and done a brilliant job of marketing himself. He didn't advertise necessarily, but he marketed himself in a way that made people believe that he's brilliant. The Oracle of Omaha and all this stuff. Now, he may not have been out there coming up with those names, but he sure as heck has done nothing to discourage their use. I promise you that.
Right, yeah.
He's brilliant the way he has done these things and the way he has done this, and that character, that grandfatherly old man character that he puts on. That's all, I promise you, that's all contrived and specifically created for a reason. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am saying is if you have money that you're investing, you don't want to invest it with somebody based on the image that they're putting on TV or the image that they put in a magazine or the image that they put in an advertisement. You want to invest with them based on what they've done in the past. You don't want to look for a place to plug your umbilical cord in. If you want to trust somebody because of their marketing or because of their positioning to come clean your house, well, fine, they might miss a spot on the floor, but not with your investing. That's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, very good point. Very good point. It's hard to say that's, like an unfair advantage, though, because, I'm sure everybody in the public eye manages their image to some extent. People even do that in social situations. They probably do it at home with their spouse, to some extent.
No question about it. And I'm not beating up on Buffett to do it. From his point of view, it's exactly what he should be doing. He's brilliant about it, and he's done exactly what he should be doing. So I'm not even saying he's doing something wrong.
The thing that I think is very wrong that Warren Buffett does is, like during the financial crisis, a few years ago, he was saying, well, I'm buying stock in B of A, and then I think he bought some stock in Goldman Sachs too. And he went around like backing up the government's position and trying to like act like you should invest in these companies too. It's such a bunch of crap because he's an insider. He's not buying at the same price you're buying, and he has all sorts of special privileges and insider information, and it's just not the same game, but what they do is they use this to influence the ordinary middle class investor to the detriment, I'd say, of those middle class investors. So that's the problem.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important that you educate yourself and not just go with what what these guys say. I mean, I'm constantly now part of it is because of clients that I have. I got to stay up on the news, but I'm constantly working to learn about another piece of the market, learn about another strategy. Constantly studying some sort of economics textbook. Now, you might say, well, that's unrealistic to expect people to do that in a general sense. And yes, I do have a professional motive for doing it. However, if I was investing, if this was my livelihood, I wouldn't really be interested in learning how to invest from the brokerage company that's investing my money. I want to go find independent information and gather information from truly independent, completely unplugged sources. And that's really that's really what's missing, is that unfortunately to the detriment of the investor, as you mentioned, they watch what Buffett does. They watch what these guys do, who are, as you said, they're insiders and play by a whole completely separate bit of rules. They watch what these guys do, and then they think that if they do the same thing, it's like it's like the small business who thinks if I could just advertise like Philip Morris advertises, only I do it in my county instead of around the whole country. Well, yeah, but you don't have the millions and millions and millions of dollars you need to get the results that Philip Morris can get, because, like you said, they're playing by different rules. They have different amounts of money. They're getting different ad rates. They're not paying as much as you are for the same piece of media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's got to be, people have got to educate themselves and not just look at the marketing.
Yeah, well, let's not make this all about the modern version of organized crime that I call Wall Street. But I can tell you, if anybody listening wants to become a millionaire in the stock market, it's really not that difficult. Just start with 2 million, and you'll probably have $1 million left after you're done. So
that's like the old Richard Branson joke, Richard Branson quote. If you want to make $1 million, it's not difficult at all. Just start with $1 billion and open an airline.
Yeah, exactly. The best way to become a billionaire in the airline industry is to start with 2 billion.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, same with Wall Street. But hey, give some copywriting advice out for small business people, for speakers, authors, information marketers, people with any kind of small business that want to promote themselves and want to have more success. What are some of the fundamental rules of copywriting? And I guess this also begs the question, can someone do it themselves, or do they need to hire somebody?
If you're willing to put the time in, and when I say the time, it is not a difficult skill to learn, but it does take some time to get it down. But if you're willing to put the time in, you're far better off writing for yourself. Just because you're going to know your business, you're going to hopefully know your customers better than any copywriter is ever going to know somebody. But that said, most people won't put the time in. Unfortunately, most entrepreneurs won't put the time in. But if you're willing to put the time in, do the study and do the background and learn the skill, then you're far better off writing for yourself.
So explain to us, though, just for someone who wants to take a crack at it,
Sure.
What are some of the most basic skills that someone can know about copywriting?
Well, the first thing is get rid of the institutional voice. When you're writing a piece of copy, you want to write it from somebody to somebody. Don't think that your business owner that your market is too sophisticated. The same ads, believe it or not, the same ads that work in the National Enquirer also work in Investor's Business Daily. It's not just the same gambits. I mean, the same ads in the past have worked in both areas. So your market is not too sophisticated, number one. Number two, you always have to have a headline, and the headline should be something that grabs attention, but more than grabs attention, that really touches somebody on a deep emotional level. So you've got to understand what your market really wants on a deep emotional level, not just what they say they want. So for example, when I'm marketing to entrepreneurs, I understand that entrepreneurs, they all say they want more money. That's like the easy one. But in reality, there's a couple things. First, most of them got into business with the idea of getting out. They got into the business looking to sell their business, number one. Number two, they don't want to be told what to do. They have a fiercely independent streak, normally speaking. And along those lines, they want freedom. So I know that that's the emotion. Those are the emotional keys that if I can get into if I can get that in my headline somewhere, then I'm far more likely to get their attention. So you have to have a good headline when you're putting an ad together. And that, as a matter of fact, the standard wisdom on that is 80% of the time, 80% of your time, 80% of your market is going to read the headline only. 1 in 5 people are going to read the whole ad. 4 in 5 are only going to read the headline. So you really need to make the headline powerful. If you ran it by itself with a phone number, would somebody call? That's the headline test, as it were. The other thing is a call to action. Zig Ziglar once said, if anybody know who Zig is, he was great sales trainer. Yeah, he's a great sales trainer.
The late great Zig Ziglar. I went on a speaking tour with him once. We did several speaking engagements together. It was a real honor to share the platform with him, and he's so darn funny.
Yeah. I never had the pleasure of meeting Zig, but fantastic. I learned a lot from him. But he said one time that timid salespeople have skinny kids.
Yep.
And don't be afraid to put a call to action, and a very clear call to action. I've seen people go so far, and they're more right than wrong. Go so far as to say in an advertisement or in a sales letter, stand up off your couch or wherever you're sitting, walk over to the telephone right now, pick up the telephone, dial this telephone number, get out your credit card, put your it sounds silly, but I'm telling you, the more specific and the stronger call to action you have, you'll be right more than you'll be wrong. So do whatever you feel comfortable with and crank it up by 2 or 3 times. Chances are you're going to get better response. So and try and be conversational. Now, of course, we have a very limited period of time, but I would say that the headline, the call to action, and a conversational tone will get people a lot further than what they try to put together.
What about the length of copy? There's these two schools of thoughts, but it seems like the world of copywriters is this really long copy. And frankly, I subscribe to all these lists, and I get that stuff, and I think it's just incredibly compelling. The problem is it's so darn long, I don't read it.
Well, the trick to that is called double readership path. So there's nothing wrong at all with long copy. As a matter of fact, kind of the joke is that would you set your salesperson out if you have an outside salesperson? Would you send your salesperson out and say, okay, you have 750 words on a sales presentation. Don't you dare say 751. I mean, it would just never happen. You go out there and say whatever you need to say. I mean, obviously within boundaries of ethicals and morals, and you don't want to lie, but that goes without saying. But go out there and do whatever you need to do and be as long as you need to be to close the sale. That said, there's I came up years ago, 20 years ago, I used to sell vacuum cleaners. And we walked into a house one day. This isn't a long story, I promise, so I won't bore you, Jason. But we walked into a house one day, and we were running late because we had been on – I was in training. We were running late because we had been on late for on a previous call. So we got there. We'd sold the previous call. We got there. The woman was there, and she was not a wealthy woman, but she drove a nice car, obviously have good credit, you could tell. And she kept a meticulous house. The house was beautiful. So she said, "You're supposed to be here an hour and a half ago. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's 8:30 at night. I go to bed at 9 o'clock. You have 20 minutes, and then you have got to go because I have work in the morning." So the guy who I was training with, his name was Bernard. He says, he smiles. He says, okay. So he gets his baking soda out of the, out of the bag. He sprinkles it on the rug. He says, can you go get your vacuum cleaner you use for your house now? She sends her son to get the vacuum cleaner. He says, vacuum that up. The boy vacuumed it up. I say boy, he was, 16, 17 years old. He vacuumed it up. And Bernard said, lick your lips. And the guy licked his lips. He said, what do you taste? He says, I taste baking powder. He said, that's right, you taste baking powder, but what you don't taste, that's all over your lips too, is everything that was on that carpet, everything that got tracked inside, everything that, all the dirt, all the grime, everything that was on that carpet is now on your lips too, because it spit out of the bag. The boy looked at him, turned green, ran to the bathroom and threw up. And the woman said, do you take payments? And that's double readership path. We had a 2-hour presentation, but we had to condense it down to a very short period of time. We did it and got the sale. And that's what you'd have to do with the sales letter. You have to have a double readership path. So you have the whole thing where it's laid out, where if somebody reads it, if they're an engineer type personality and they read everything, fine. But if they read the headline, read the subheads, and read the PSs, they should be able to get it.
So in other words, the theory is that double readership, because you write long copy, but you also make highlights to where someone who won't read the long copy can simply skim, and hopefully you catch them as well. So you get
exactly
the best of both worlds. Okay. One more tip and then let's wrap up.
Okay. The PS is the second most read part of a sales letter. So if you're going to spend your time, a lot of time on the headline, and a lot of time on the PS. You want the PS to create curiosity so that the person will hopefully go back and read through the sales letter to try and find whatever you mentioned in the PS. So you don't want to give prices. You don't want to give anything away in the PS. You just want to allude to something that will create a level of curiosity so that you can hopefully get the person to go back and read the letter.
Yeah, good. So those are some good tips. Well, what else would you like people to know in closing, just to wrap this up? And please give out your website too.
Okay. Well, just that, things are, it's trite, but what's going on in the White House is a lot less important than what's going on in your house. In the Great Depression, people became millionaires by selling air conditioners. So there's still plenty of money going around. Yes, it's not 2007 anymore, 2006 anymore. Money's not flowing uphill, and you have to work for it. That's fine. But there's still good news to be had, and there's still plenty of money out there. So don't throw it in the towel. And my website is they can find me at actually, you know what? Probably the best would be Copywriter in a Kilt. I wear a kilt a lot. So and what that'll do is that'll take them directly to my Facebook page where they can like me, and they can get all the information, how to contact me and everything. The other one would be evertefarnell.com, and that's I'll spell it phonetically very quickly because I know we're short on time. So I appreciate you running a little over with me, Jason. But it's Echo Victor Echo Romeo Tango Echo Foxtrot Alpha Romeo November Echo Lima Lima. So it's EverteFarnell.com or Copywriter in a Kilt, and writer is spelled with a W.
Good stuff. Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us today. And I learned some good lessons. Number one, stay away from Wall Street. I already knew that one, but I learned that one the hard way a couple of times in my life. And some good tips about attracting more customers and new business. And certainly I share your optimism. There's a ton of money floating around in the world. All people need to do is get a little piece of it. So there are definitely customers out there, regardless of the economic times in which you find yourself. So thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What's great about the shows you'll find on jasonhartman.com is that if you want to learn about some cool new investor software, there's a show for that. If you want to learn why Rome fell, Hitler rose, and Enron failed, there's a show for that. If you want to know about property evaluation technology on the iPhone, there's a show for that. And if you'd like to know how to make millions with mobile homes, there's even a show for that. Yep, there's a show for just about anything. Only from jasonhartman.com. Or type in Jason Hartman in the iTunes Store.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.